Well, hello. It is time for another Native American flute lesson. And I am Enoch Chapman from Native Music Enthusiast, and I'm excited to do another lesson. I love these lessons. I think they're fantastic and they're really fun to do. And I'm hoping you guys out there are enjoying them as much as I'm enjoying putting them together. They are always great to get people more excited about the Native American flute, get people playing the Native American flute, and just enjoy this instrument because it is a really, really, really great instrument. Let's recap a little bit about what we've been talking about over the last couple lessons, just so that we can catch up to where everything is. The very first lesson we talked about the parts of the flute, we talked about putting your hands on the flute, and we talked about your first scale. We also talked about the importance of breathing, and we'll get into breathing here in a little bit because breathing is really important, and I want us to always start off at least with some sort of breathing exercises because that is a good thing to at least do to get going. So we'll do that here in a second. But we talked about all the different components and everything about the flute, and that's important for us to understand and learn. In our last lesson, though, we talked about some notes of the flute, and I really want to go over that real quickly in kind of just a review fashion so that we have, a little bit more understanding of where we're coming from. So we mentioned in the first lesson that we hold our hands like this, with our strong hand on the bottom and our weak hand on top, and we hold them in these 3-finger patterns, right? 3 fingers go on the bottom, 3 fingers go on the top. We also mentioned that this is an anchor finger. This finger never moves. So our third finger, 1, 2, 3, from the top, never moves. It's always going to stay there, okay? So that fourth hole always gets covered. Now, some flutes will have that as a covering already. This is a B-flat flute that I have, and you'll notice that here on the B-flat flute that there's a little leather strap right here, and that's to make sure that that anchor finger is there. You don't need to keep your anchor finger there. It's already covered. It turns it into a 5-hole flute, unlike the 6-hole flute where it would if I took the leather strap off. So some flute manufacturers actually provide these little leather straps to keep that anchor finger going so that so it's always there, so you don't have to worry about it. With our regular 6-hole flutes, though, we do have to worry about that, and so we do make sure that that third finger or that fourth hole is always covered and that anchor finger is there. That's going to keep that going, and that's going to keep that strong. Now, in our last lesson, we did talk about the flute holes on the bottom part and the notes that they provide. We talked about how when we cover our fingers up and we cover this into first position, which is all the holes covered, we have that be the name of the flute. Now, this flute here is a B flute. So all the holes covered is going to be a B. And we talked a little bit about how in the music there's that scale that goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then goes back to A. So we have a kind of revolving scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And as we keep playing, no matter how high we get or no matter how low we get, we will always use that same pattern, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Now, this is my B flute. So when I put all my fingers on here and I play the lowest note possible, I am playing a B. That is a B. The next note, or when I move to my next position, my second position, which is going to have my finger off of it, and I'm just going to have my one hole uncovered and the rest of my 2 holes here covered. That's going to be my second position. When I do that, that's going to be another letter in the alphabet. However, unlike the traditional A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, we have in our native flute, when we do our anchor finger, a pentatonic scale. That means it's a 5-note scale. And what's going to happen is we're only going to play 5 notes, not the entire 7 notes that you get with the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? That is 7 notes. However, in the pentatonic scale, we're skipping 2 notes. So we have to skip 2 notes. And we talked about this last time in our last lesson, that when we play our second position with that hole covered, instead of going from B to what we would think of as a C, we actually go B to D. We skip over that next letter and we get to the other letter of the alphabet. So B, skip over C, and now I'm at D. B, D. That's going to be my next letter here of the flute. And I go B, that's first position, all holes covered, name of the flute. D, second position, that's going to be the front one hole uncovered. Then I'm going to go to E, and that's going to be that next hole uncovered. And then I'm going to go to my open position, or my fourth position, which is going to be F of some sort. In the B flute, it's going to be an F sharp. Now, these are all things that happen in music theory, and if we get more into that, you'll understand why the scale works that way. But for the right now, just trust me on the fact that on my B flute, it goes to B, D, E to F sharp. First position B, second position D, third position E, fourth position F sharp. And that's going to change depending upon the flute I'm in. If I have my A flute, so this is my A flute, and again, on the back of the flute, you can actually see the letter of the flute. That's the key that's in. So this is my A flute. I cover all my fingers. Okay, first position, all fingers covered. That's going to be A. Second position, my first finger taking off, right? That's going to be, it's not going to be B, right? We're going to jump over from A. We're going to go to A, jump over the next letter, and we're going to get to C. So that's going to be this next one, C. Then we go to next position, third position, D. And then we do open position to E. A, jump over B, C, D, E. And that pattern works for every flute type of flute that you have, whether it be a G flute, an F sharp flute, A flute we already did, but like a D flute or an E flute. Even my B flat flute works in the same pattern. B flat, that's the first one with all the holes covered. My first or my second position with my uncovering my first hole, that's going to be jump over C, get to D. It's going to be some sort of D. It's going to be a D flat. Then the next note is going to be an E flat, and the next note is going to be an F. Just weird things that you kind of get to know as your flute is, as you start practicing your flute and as you start understanding it better. These are the notes of the flute and how the flute works. And this is important for us to understand as we talk about our lower hand, that we can now understand which notes are being played. This will help us as we start playing with other instruments, as we start playing with ensembles, as we start playing or reading music. We'll start being able to understand these are the notes that I can play on this flute. And that's important because the flutes themselves are very static instruments. They don't move as easily in and out of keys as other instruments do. We are really tied down when we start thinking about the anchor finger, how that anchor finger works, and we're really tied down in limiting how those notes work. Now, there are other notes, and we will start talking about that a little bit further down in future lessons, but for the most part, it's really important to understand that the beginning parts of the flute, the lower notes of the flute, these notes down here on our strong hand, these four notes are made up of a similar pattern. Again, first position, all the holes covered. That is the name of the flute. Second position, your first uncovered hole or your third finger here or your first finger here taking off, right? That is going to be the next note skipped, right? So we're skipping a note from B, C, D. It's going to be D on the B flute. It's going to be C on the A flute. It's going to be A on the F sharp flute. It's going to be B flat on the G flute. It's going to be the next note skipped afterwards. So we have that skip. Our third position, which is our, two uncovered holes. Third position is going to be the next letter. So on my B flute, it's going to be the E. And then open position or fourth position, which is all our bottom holes open, all our bottom holes uncovered, that is going to be the next note. And for me, it's on the B flute, it's going to be F sharp. On an A flute, it's going to be E. On an F sharp flute, it's going to be C sharp. It's going to be some sort of idea of the next letter of whatever is the flute that you're in. Now, that's just important to understand. And it's important for us to realize as students of this instrument that there are patterns that we can follow to understand the notes that we're playing and to understand how we're going to relate to other people, because we want to play with other people. We want to include others inside of our ensembles. And that's where things get really, really fun, is when we start playing with other people and not just playing solo. This is a great instrument to play by yourself. It's a great instrument to, get your emotions out, to get all that kind of frustration out and bring peace to your mind and peace to your center. This is a great instrument to do that, but it's also really fun to play with other instruments as well. Now, when we start talking about the flute, before we play the flute, we should really prepare a little bit by just breathing. Remember the world of our breath. Our breath is so important with this instrument because our breath breathes life into this instrument. Not lice, that's weird, but breathes life into this instrument. And because of our breath being as important as it is and how it actually, the instrument conforms to our breath, it is vitally important that we learn how to breathe and we breathe effectively so we can breathe with this instrument. So let's talk about the breath again, which we talked about in our first lesson, we talked about in our second lesson, and we're still talking about in our third lesson. And I guarantee we're going to be talking about for much longer times in lessons because it is so important. Remember, with the breath, we want to use our diaphragm, which is the muscle that sits right below our belly. And that muscle is going to move down as we press on it. It's just that's how it like constricts, is by moving down. And by moving down, it's going to add more air into our lungs, and that's important. And we want that to kind of get activated, and I hate this word, but it's like the only word I can think of, engaged as we're actually breathing and as we're playing. We want that muscle to be active, and we want that to be able to push down and let our bellies fill up so that we're getting as much air into our lungs as possible. Okay. Now remember, the easiest way to see that is by putting our fingers like this. So we're going to create a little like weird web pattern here where our middle fingers are going to touch. And we're going to take that and we're going to put it right over our belly button. And as we breathe, we want those fingers to expand. We want them to kind of move and separate. So those fingers are going to come apart. And that's how we know that we're actually using our diaphragm and we're using our belly to fill up with air, okay? Is by putting our fingers right there and breathing. And as you breathe, your fingers should start to go apart and then come back together and then go apart and then come back together. And that's a good indicator that we are breathing correctly. Now, to get our whole body engaged with this breathing, to get our feeling inside this breathing so we have the right thing, it's a very simple exercise that we talked about beforehand, where we just start a count. We inhale for 4 beats, we hold for 2 beats, and then we exhale for 4 beats. So let's start a count, right? We go 1, 2, 3, 4, which is where we get inhale. We hold for 2, and then we exhale 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here we go. Now hold and exhale. Excellent. Very nice. Okay, super easy. Nothing too difficult about it. Let's do it again. 1, 2, ready, breathe. Hold, and then perfect. And that's it. That's the exercise. It's as simple as that. Nothing too complicated, nothing too crazy, just a way for you to breathe. And we want to keep this pattern going where we're going to breathe for 4, we're going to hold for 2, and then we're going to exhale for 4. So one more time. Let's try it again. 1, 2, ready, breathe. Now hold. Now, perfect. Wonderful. Now we're getting our breath engaged. That's how we're breathing. We're learning to keep that breath in, okay? Now I want to take your flute, and as we're still kind of keeping that beat, now I'm putting all my hands here so I can't really snap, but as we keep that beat, I want to do the same thing. Inhale, hold, and then breathe through the flute on the lower pitch. Ready? So 1, 2, ready, inhale. Hold. Perfect. And that's as simple as you get, right? We're getting that breath control. We're getting that breathing under control so that we can have the best long tones as possible. The thing about the Native American wood flute or the Native American flute is that it is about long tones. People love the long tones. It doesn't matter all the cool little fast stuff that you do. It's the long tones that people get into. They really like that. Oh, ooh, oh, cool. I'm at peace. Ooh, oh, so you can do all this kind of crazy stuff, you know. It's the long tone that's people are like, oh, that's the sweet spot. That's where I like to be. So we want to make sure that we're breathing and creating these long tones and practicing our long tones and actually seeing how long we can get. How far can you go? With your beat count, can you get to 4? Can you get to 8? Can you get to 12? Can you get to 16? Can you get to 20? 20 is really tricky. I mean, if you're trying to do 20, good. You have to practice at it because it's not something you can do just very easily, at the get-go. Well, just breathe and go to 20. It's 20 takes a long time. But the idea is still the same. You just inhale, get your diaphragm moving, get your belly, full up with air, get that inflate it as much as possible, get your lungs using all that air, and then as you push out, you're going to have a much easier time getting to the links that you want to, right? So here's your count. I'm going to breathe, and then you just count for me and see how long I can play for, right? 1, 2, ready, go. Hold. So that's a little bit long, but I've been practicing for a while. So if you weren't able to do it as long as I did, that's great. I've been doing this for a little while, and I'm still out of practice. I still need to practice more and get a better air control out of that. So that was probably like around maybe like 18, maybe 20. If you know, you can leave a comment in the section and tell me how long that was. But for the most part, I mean, it was there. And you want to try to get that same type of breath control as well, because that's really going to help you sell the instrument to other people. They're going to love to hear those long tones and those sweet spots that everyone loves, man. It's that long tone. People are like, oh, that's the flute. That's the stuff, man. Hit me with that, because I love that. That's what people like. So you want those long tones, and you want to be able to create that as much as possible. Okay, so let's talk about some stuff for today for our lesson. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to take a little drink of water. I have a little water cup here, so I'm just going to take a little drink of water. Okay, so on to today's lesson. Last week we talked about notes, and we talked about the lower notes, and maybe we should talk about the upper notes, but I don't want to go into that today. I want to talk about something that's really, really important in the terms of like expression and self-expression and how to get the best out for you. And I think the thing that we really should understand a little bit more is this idea of like a pulse or the beat. What does that mean? What does the pulse and the beat mean for you as a performer who's playing their own things? I have here a metronome. Now, whoops, I'm going to bring this over to the side. A metronome. Now, metronomes are great. They are the most amazing instruments in the world because all they're designed to do is keep track of time. They just put pulses into play. Boom, 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 boom. It's just pulses and pulses and pulses. And metronomes are fantastic. This right here is a Dr. Beat from Boss. I am not a Boss, sponsor or anything like that. Nothing like that. This is just my metronome. And I love this metronome. This is a metronome that is for percussionists, for drummers. It is the probably most advanced metronome that you ever would ever need. So don't go out and get anything like this. Go out and find something that is simple and easy to use. If you have a cell phone or a smartphone, there's tons of metronome apps that you can download for your smartphone. Go out and find one and just get a metronome and just learn how to deal with the pulse. Now, a metronome is really good to create a pulse for you to follow. So I'm going to turn my metronome to 60 beats per minute, and I'm just going to start it. And you can hear that all it's doing is just clicking. That's all the metronome does, is it clicks. Now, some metronomes you may see actually do this little oscillating thing where they goes back and forth like you would on a piano metronome, those ones that kind of like pyramid shape. This one has a whole slew of different gadgets like lights, and it has the oscillator, and it's got the beats per minute, and you can do different time signatures and all sorts of craziness. That's too complicated for anything. All I want is this beats per minute, and I want that 60 beats per minute. Now, what that means when you hear beats per minute is we're putting 60 of these clicks in 1 minute. So when we say turn your metronome to 60, what we're saying is turn your metronome to 60 beats per minute. Saying turn your metronome to 120, we're saying 120 beats per minute. 88, 96, all those types of numbers are all beats per minute. And they end up squishing into that minute. So 120 is way faster than 60. It's twice as fast. And that's what you end up getting when you start doing these multiple beats per minute. So here's 60, and now I'm going to show you 120. That's 120. You'll see that they're halfway through, right? So that's 120 beats per minute in there. Back to 60. And again, you can raise it and lower it however you want to. Now, Metronomes are great because they allow you to kind of control the tempo of not just the music, but your body. After listening to metronomes, after you listen to clicks, your body will actually start falling into rhythm with the click, which is a very interesting kind of result of listening to metronomes, is that they actually fall into the beat of what you're listening to. It's like when you listen to music, like one of your favorite songs. Let's say you're working out, or you're getting psyched up, or you're getting pumped up for and excited for something. You're listening to music, and it's just pumping you up. Those beats, those beats of the music, the pulse is being played. That's causing your body to react, and it's pushing adrenaline in, and all the other stuff. It's your body reacts to these times, these beats. So with the metronome, what we're just going to do is we're just going to have that 60 beats per minute, and we're just going to let it sit there, and we're going to kind of just listen to it. We're going to have that be what we are going to play to. Click, 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 click. Again, if you want to kind of like breathe into it, you can do the same thing, right? Breathe 4 in, hold for 2, exhale for 4. Right? It's the same type of thing as what that little pulse was that I was doing beforehand. Now, with the metronome playing, all I want you to do is I want you to take the notes that we played, our lower hand notes, and we're going to play up and down, but we're going to play to the clicks. 1, 2, ready, go. Simple as that. Now we're going to play to every other click. So we're going to have 2 clicks per note. Ready, go. Nice. And this is going to allow us to kind of grow our long tones, but it's also going to allow us to be able to play through kind of rhythms and beats that we have for our own individual music. It's important that when you play to a pulse, or you play to a beat. You don't have to have a metronome running. So, putting your metronome on the sitai or anything like that, you don't need to do that. But you do need to play to some sort of kind of defined rhythm or defined pulse. The reason why is because if you don't, it's going to be very confusing for the audience members to listen to. We don't really like things that aren't organized in terms of how we look at art. It's just not the greatest thing in the world. Disorganization really comes across as kind of like noise. So when we play, we want to play to organization. Now, this beat is a good way to get to that point. And I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just doing 60 beats per minute. You can go slower if you want to. You can go faster if you want to. However, I don't recommend going over 88 if you're just starting off. If you've been playing for a while, if you understand music, you can go as fast as you want to. But 88 is probably like a good high tempo mark if you're just starting off, to try to get into this feeling of the music and get the pulse. Now, as I play, you can hear a difference in when I play with an organized beat versus if I play with a disorganized beat. So here's something with the organized beat. Now, if I play without an organized beat, and so let me just put this onto mute real quick. So it's just it's still playing, but we're not gonna have the beat. If I play without this organized beat, which is gonna be tricky for me because I'm so used to playing with a beat, you'll hear the difference. It's not gonna sound really as great, okay? you'll notice that the organized versus the disorganized tend to sound a little bit different. We tend to like the organized a lot more. And so what we want to do as we're starting to play is we want to keep that pulse going, or we want to keep a pulse going internally as we're playing so that people kind of understand what we're doing. And that's important. We want people to appreciate and like what we play. We don't want to just be playing. That's crazy. So keeping a pulse and keeping a steady beat is really important. Now, we haven't talked about note types like quarter notes or half notes or any of that type of stuff. That's all stuff for sheet music, for when you're going to read music and understand music. All we're talking about here is the pulse, that beat of the metronome, or that internal beat that we're going to have that allows us to know how long do we hold a note for in relationship to another note, right? So if I'm going to play a note on the beat like this, I know that those notes are going to be very even. They're going to sound very even. It's not going to be too confusing. If I want to hold a note for like 2 beats, I can do that. And all of a sudden now I have organization. If I want to play half of the beats, I can do that as well. See, all of a sudden now that organization comes into play. If I want to play 3 notes inside the beat, I can do that too, right? So it's just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if I want to do 4, da 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 da. All of a sudden the organization comes into play, and it makes us feel like we're listening to a song, something that's actually been around for a while. And so the beats are really important. It's not just important for to read music and understand how music works, but it's important for us as performers, as we're playing the flute, that we can organize it in a way that people are going to enjoy it. We want people to enjoy it, right? So to recap, a metronome, by far, go out and get a metronome. Now, you don't have to spend lots of money on a metronome. This guy here, it's way too much of a metronome for anyone to purchase. If you're just starting off, don't buy this one. This is like $200, man. Don't get this. You don't need to invest that much. Go out and get a free metronome. Download something off your smartphone. If you want to leave the metronome that you like inside the comments, go ahead and do that, because I'd love to see what type of metronomes you guys are using. If you want to go out and buy like a metronome, like a pocket metronome or something like that, you can get them for like $5 to $10. We're talking really, really inexpensive. And you can do a metronome, just go to your local music store and pick up one there. Go look at Amazon. There are metronomes all over the place. And yes, some brands are better than others, and some things are, it's just like everything in technology. Some are better than others. But for the most part, you just need something that clicks. This is a clicker. This is fantastic. It works great. I love it. Get a metronome. Then, after you get the metronome, set it to a tempo that's going to be easy for you to get involved with and start working through. For me, I love the 60. 60 beats per minute is awesome. It's just like the second hand on a clock. If you ever watch the second hand on a clock, every click is just a second going by. And it makes it very easy, very nice to actually play. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's very, very standard. So you set it at a beat, and you start playing with the beat. You take your flute out, and if you're following along with these lessons, just play the lower notes, and then play variations of the lower notes on the beats, in the middle of the beats, where the beats match, so that you're starting to feel that beat, that pulse, and internalize that pulse. It's going to make your playing so much better. I guarantee it. It's going to make your playing 10 times more impressive than anywhere else if you can learn to follow a beat and a pulse. So the pulse is so important, right? Breathe, long tones, metronome, learn how to play with the pulse. And I guarantee, I'm going to turn this off right now. I guarantee your playing is going to be so much better. Okay. Go out there and, pick up the flute, make sure you're playing because it is such a great instrument. And I hope you guys enjoyed this little quick lesson today. You know, go out and yeah, just keep playing and have fun. And I will see you guys next time.